It's Kane Hodder from Friday the 13th. You are listening to 13 Days of Friday on Rock Video Rental.
Welcome everybody to Rock Video Rental. I am Brandon, and with me is Caleb. We are continuing on with our Friday the 13th marathon. We are now to Friday the 13th, the final chapter. It is from 1984. It was directed by Joseph Zito, and the cast is Kimberly Beck as Trish, Corey Feldman as Tommy Jarvis, Crispin Glover as Jimmy, Eric Anderson as Rob, Judy Aronson as Samantha, Peter Barton as Doug, Joan Freeman as Mrs. Jarvis, Clyde Hayes as Paul, and Ted White as Jason this time around. The plot for this one is after being mortally wounded and taken to the morgue, murderer Jason Voorhees spontaneously revives and embarks on a killing spree as he makes his way back to his home at Camp Crystal Lake. So this one is widely regarded as probably the best in the series.
Okay.
I said when we started doing this, after we watched the first one, that the first one is a very important movie in the horror genre, mostly because of what it spawned.
Yeah.
And how much money it made and everything. Where I feel like 2, 3, and 4 are the best of the series. And then a couple more, like a little later on, are still pretty good, compared to some of the lows in the series or some of the lows in the slasher genre in general.
Okay.
But so I'm sure you really laughed at the beginning of this. There's another recap.
Yes.
But this time it's a recap of the whole series.
Yes.
Oh man, I can't remember. So I'll remember obviously when we start going through these some more, but I can't remember the first one they have that doesn't have a recap.
Well, we're about to find out.
Yeah, because I feel like a recap is really unnecessary. Because it doesn't really, there's not very much continuity in these movies. Like every one of them seems to have their own rules for Jason.
Yeah. Well, they could have with this one. I felt like because they picked up right afterwards, and at the same location. So honestly, it's kind of like they didn't really need a recap. I mean, this one was probably the one that would have made the most sense if they didn't do a recap, because it was as soon as it was done, boom, here we are. They're cleaning up the mess from the last movie.
Yeah, for sure. And so there was part 2, and then part 3 took place a day after part 2. So, part 3 is technically Saturday the 14th, and then this would be Sunday the 15th because it takes place the day after part 3.
Nice. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And I mean, they pump these movies out so fast, like a year in between almost all of them. So it doesn't really surprise me that they just went, oh, it's the day after, day after, day after. That kind of hits the fan after a while, and the timeline's a little murky at best. But I guess we can talk about a little bit about the movie. We get the big cast of characters. You get, Trish is the final girl. You got the Jarvis family, which is the boy Tommy, the mom, and then you got Trish, who is the final girl. And then Corey Feldman. It's one of his earlier roles in this movie as Tommy, and a lot of people kind of say, his character was supposed to be a nod to Tom Savini, who did the special effects for the first one and for this one.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I can see that.
Yeah, and it's I don't know, if you watch as many slasher movies as I do, and you see a slasher movie that has the special effects of Tom Savini, and then one that has the special effects of anybody else, there's a big difference.
Okay.
Um, he is like kind of known as like the master of practical effects.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's never used CG or anything like that. He does all like makeup and real life stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he just like the simple things that he can use to make things look realistic,
Yeah.
and to do things on a budget. And yeah, he's kind of the grandmaster of gore, I've heard him called before. So he actually, this is his second time doing a movie with Joseph Zito, the director. He did the 1981 movie The Prowler,
Okay.
which is a really like mean-spirited kind of gory slasher movie. um, all the kills are like super brutal in it. There's like a head explosion at the end, which I talk about him taking everyday things and like simple ideas and making them look fairly realistic. The head explosion at the end was just like a plaster cast of the guy's head, or like a latex cast of the guy's head, filled with fake blood and then like crab dip to get like the nasty bits that blow up on the wall and everything. So it's just the way he did things. And there's like documentaries and stuff with him in it where he shows like all the simple ways that he did these complex kills.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, his special effects are in full effect in this movie. It's some of the best in the series, I'd say. A lot of gruesome stuff, a lot of like fairly realistic looking stuff for an 80s movie. Um, so basically, like the plot for this is you get this group of friends that are just going to like a lake house for a vacation, and the Jarvis family's next door, and then Jason kind of stumbles across these people, and he starts picking them off one by one. Um,
Mm.
Not much change with a plot in a Friday the 13th movie. They're all pretty much the same. Somehow, um, somehow teenagers have to get to Crystal Lake, and then Jason just starts killing them.
Of course.
Yeah. Um, One character, there's a few characters in this that are like a little irritating, and some are like pretty amusing. The one that really drove me nuts is the girl Sarah,
Okay.
and I feel like I can't remember who played her, but
Barbara Howard.
okay, yeah, I feel like she reminded me a lot of Sarah Jessica Parker,
Yeah, actually, I think that popped into my head at one point.
which I can't really stand her. She's mildly irritating, but like
Yeah.
this girl is so obnoxious. Like she's keeps like leading her boyfriend on, and then she like makes a big deal about everything, and like she's like whining and complaining and how everything's like so difficult for her, and she's scared about all this other stuff, and it's just like, get over yourself.
Nice.
And
I
I've seen this movie quite a bit, and it's like just this time watching it, I'm like, God, she's annoying.
I wasn't sure that she was like that she had a boyfriend. I was a little bit kind of confused on exactly what the dynamic was with her.
Yeah, either she had a boyfriend or just like a guy that was really into her.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I took it. Um, and then another character that always stands out to me as being like the douche of the movie is Ted,
Mm-hmm.
aka Teddy Bear.
Yeah.
He's like hitting on every single girl in the cabin and like trying to get some, and he's like pretty much the only one that doesn't, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's just a complete and utter tool, and all he does is like pick fun and rag on his friend Jimmy, who is played by Crispin Glover.
Yeah.
And Jimmy is one of those characters. He's just funny, like because he's so neurotic and he's such like a dweeb,
Mm-hmm.
but then he like ends up with like one of the better looking girls that Ted was going after.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just cracks me up. And one of the scenes that always stands out to me, which has become like a famous part from this movie, is like his dance scene.
Yeah.
That crazy dance he does, where he's just like kind of flailing all about. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen like interviews and stuff with Crispin Glover. Like he's an interesting guy. He's very strange.
That's funny. Yeah, no, that definitely stood out to me, that scene. And I did think about the dynamic of him and Ted, of Jimmy and Ted, because it was just kind of funny to see how they put that in there. And I do, in the general scope of this movie, it was put together well. Like a lot of the first three, and downtime or kind of weird gaps and different things like that. This one flowed really well, and the not character development, but the interactions that they had with the different characters. The what they built with Jimmy and Ted was maybe one of the more interesting ones, just because they had kind of deeper conversations than most of the other characters.
Yeah, and I feel like that can be also saying this like said the same for the character of Samantha and the character of Sarah, because
Mm-hmm.
that they have a similar dynamic where Samantha's more of like the, I don't know, kind of like the more loose good time girl, where
Mm-hmm.
Sarah's like the more reserved like good girl.
Yeah.
But they're friends, and she's like Samantha's trying to get her to come out of her shell a little bit, where Sarah's trying to get Samantha to maybe reel it in a little.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, it's kind of a funny dynamic there too. And you started saying something about character development. For this series, like this movie does a pretty good job at developing some of their characters and like
Yeah.
making you care about some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Where later installments kind of just the characters just become bodies for Jason to pile up.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. They started the last one they did. I feel like they started that. They started more of the character development, and then they took it to a new level with this one. And yeah, Jimmy and Ted. It was just kind of interesting because it felt rather realistic. What they were doing with them, because totally cliche. You know, guy talk conversation, ragging on each other, Ted, putting Jimmy down the whole time, and then Ted winds up being the one that gets stuck without a girl at the end of it all. So
Yeah, and then like Jimmy kind of rubs it in
yeah.
to make him feel like a douche. Um, yeah, that cracks me up every time I see it. Another character that I liked because he was just so ridiculous was kind of a throwaway character at the beginning of the movie, and that's the I don't know if he's like a nurse or a doctor, but Axel.
Okay.
He's like the pervy doctor who like says all these really sexual things to like the nurses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know which one I'm talking about? He's watching like the aerobic workout thing.
Oh yeah.
And
Yep. I know who you're talking
yeah,
about.
he might have been like a coroner or something like that, but he's working at the morgue.
Mm-hmm.
But that guy, he always stands out to me too. He's just like everything he says just makes your skin crawl, or like he's just cussing and swearing a lot.
He made me think of, who's the guy in The Big Bang Theory with the lisp?
Oh, Barry Kripke.
Yeah. He made me. He came to mind when I saw that character.
Yeah, pretty similar character, just not as annoying as Kripke.
Yeah, for sure. And no, that intro scene was kind of interesting, and I mean part of it was, I felt, was a little ridiculous, where it's just like, dude, why is the body not put away yet, and
Hmm.
who in their right mind would want to fool around in a room with dead bodies? Like,
I guess if you're around them all the time, it becomes like the new normal.
I guess so.
I guess we can. There's not really too much I can say about the movie. Like I said, it's really like similar to the other ones. It's done a lot better than the other ones.
Hmm.
Well, with character development and kills and stuff like that. So we can get in talking about the kills. This has a body count of technically 14, but That's if you count Jason. So, I mentioned Axel. He ends up getting a hacksaw to the throat, and then he gets his head like twisted around.
Yeah.
That was really brutal. Um, Nurse Morgan, she gets the one that was like fooling around with Axel. She gets gutted with a scalpel
Mm-hmm.
and like lifted off the ground with it. Um, there's a hitchhiker who they just refer to as the fat girl in the credits. She gets a knife to the back of the neck and it comes out her throat.
Yeah.
Uh, so Samantha, the kind of the slutty girl, she gets a knife through the torso on a raft. And that's like Jason coming up through the water and stabbing her in the stomach.
Funny thing about
Paul,
that is my parents had rafts like that at their house.
did they?
Yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, I've seen those rafts before.
Well, at least she didn't get a knife to the stomach.
Right.
So Paul, he gets a spear to the groin. Terry gets a spear to the back. Mrs. Jarvis gets killed off screen. You gotta love the off screen kills.
Yeah, that was a
Uh,
little weird.
yeah, that happens a fair amount in slasher movies. Friday the 13th is kind of notorious for that.
Actually, can we talk about the Terry one real quick?
Yeah.
I thought that was one of the more creative ones. Just because I was a little surprised that she died right then because they panned past her and then they used the shadow to show Jason killing her.
hmm
And I thought that was just more creative. I mean, all of his special effects and everything are creative and well done, but that was just more of a creative, um, I don't know if you would say like artistic take on it. Was
Yeah.
that interesting perspective? And when it happened, I was like, oh, that was different. That was interesting. And then, but almost immediately right after that, I almost busted out laughing because then it was where I think she was at the end of the spear and he threw the spear with her on it
Yeah.
into the side of the house. And it was very obvious that it was a dummy.
hmm
And which I mean, it still looked good and everything, but it made me laugh.
Yeah. And then when Jimmy gets killed, that always cracks me up too because, like, he's going to the kitchen to get a drink, and he's looking around. Um, he's like, "Hey Ted, where's that corkscrew at?" Like, can't find a corkscrew. And then he's like, "Hey asshole, where's the corkscrew?" And all of a sudden, like, it gets stabbed through his hand,
Hmm.
and then he screams that Jason buries a meat cleaver into his face.
Yeah.
That was really brutal. Um, but that where's the corkscrew? And then also it goes right through his hand. That always cracks me up. Um, and then Tina, the other twin, Terry's twin, she gets thrown through a window and then lands on a car, and like all the windows blow out in the car when she hits it.
Yeah.
That one always makes me laugh because I'm always like, she only fell like 15 feet. Would
Hmm.
that kill you?
I mean, like if you hit your head right and your neck, for sure. I mean, it doesn't take too much to snap and everything. But the part that makes me laugh is just it would need a lot more force to cause all the windows to blast out of that car. So that was a part that kind of made me laugh.
Yeah, and I always think too, like, one thing that would have been better is if he threw her out and she landed on her head.
Hmm.
If she would have like they would have like a crunching sound like she broke her neck, that would have been more effective, I feel like.
Yeah, they could have emphasized it more, or it would have been kind of interesting too if he threw her out and she landed on, something like farm equipment or something.
Yeah. So the douchebag Ted, he gets a knife to the back like through a projector screen,
Hmm.
and then he slides down it and there's like a blood trail on a projector screen. Um, Doug gets his head crushed up against a wall.
That was a pretty gruesome one.
Yeah, it was because just like the sound effects of the guy's face smashing into the shower wall. Annoying Sarah gets an axe to the chest. And then Rob gets a like a trowel through the throat, like a garden trowel.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes Jason. And so when this movie came out, it was supposed to be the final Friday 13th, thus the name, the final chapter.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to think of like the best way to kill Jason off. Like Jason's like this big character, and it's these movies are known for their brutal kills, so we have to do something in a brutal way to take Jason out,
Mm-hmm.
like a definitive kill. And the end, we get a good chase and fight back from Trish, who is actually a pretty good final girl. She's one of the best ones in the series.
Mm-hmm.
She's like resourceful, she's smart, she's kind, and caring and everything like that. Like all like the things that you'd want like in a final girl in these movies.
But she
And
didn't
then-
help Rob. Like she just watched. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And then hey, at least the dog got away. Another instance of the dog being the smartest character in the movie.
Yep.
That happens quite a bit in Friday 13th.
Yeah, the dog
I've
jumped
noticed
out the
that.
window.
He's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, I wasn't sure exactly what happened with that. I was like, okay, did the dog jump out or did somebody did Jason throw him out? I was a little confused when it happened. So
Oh gosh. Yeah, but he got out of Dodge.
Yeah.
So while Trish is like fighting Jason off, Tommy comes in and he like has shaved his head to like kind of look similar to Jason.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls out to Jason and distracts him. And this part is always weird to me. Like, did he have to shave his head to? Like, is Jason that dumb that he's like, oh, I'm looking at myself when I was a kid?
Yeah, I was a little confused by that too. So I don't know exactly what that ploy was. I mean, was it, hey, am I looking at myself, or hey, this kid was like me?
Yeah.
I was really interested when they showed that Corey Feldman, his character was in there, because I was just like, wow, how is Jason going to act with a kid? Is he going to go after a kid, and attack him? So it was, I didn't know if they were going to use that in any way, and they apparently tried to with this whole distraction thing.
Yeah. So through the struggle and everything, Jason's mask comes off, and you get to see like his mangled up face, and kind of cool like makeup effect. He's got like a weird kind of grin on his face,
Mm-hmm.
and while Tommy distracts him, like Jason gets a machete to the side of the head, and it makes him collapse to the ground, and he lands like face first, and the handle of the machete hits, and then Jason like slowly slides down the blade,
Mm-hmm.
and like you can see his mouth moving and his eye twitching, and then like he collapses. Then Trish and Tommy kind of like hug and are like trying to come down from everything that happened, and then Tommy sees Jason move, and he gets the machete and just starts hacking the crap out of him,
Yeah.
and like yelling "die," and he just like flips out. And this is another case of this series not knowing how to end their movies, because they could have just ended it right there.
Yeah.
But we get another hospital scene where Trish is in a hospital, and a psychiatrist is like talking to her, saying, he has no recollection of what happened. Sometimes in traumatic things like this, like the mind just kind of shuts off, and he reacted in a way that he like thought was necessary. Like he should be okay. That it's just like a one-time thing. And then Tommy comes in and they hug, and then all of a sudden Corey Feldman looks at the camera, and like it zooms in like on his like blank look on his face, and then that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
setting it up. It's like, okay, is there going to be another one where Tommy becomes Jason and starts killing people?
Mm-hmm.
But we'll find that out when we do part 5.
Dun dun dun. A question, and I'm trying to remember. Do the other 3 all end with somebody like in a hospital or whatnot, like in an ambulance? Because so the first one ends and she's in a hospital. I can't remember
Mhm.
her name.
Yeah.
The
Alice.
third one ends with someone in the hospital, isn't it? No.
The second one has an ambulance.
Oh, and they don't really show her though. They just show her taken away, right?
Yeah.
The third one, they show her being taken
Taken
away.
away. Yep.
And then this one, the person's in the hospital again.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it always seems like they're just like they have to reference that. So
Yeah, I
apparently,
feel like they like really want to have things all tied up, and then they're like, "Oh, it made a lot of money, so we got to make a sequel. So how are we gonna do this?"
yeah. The 2 things that seem to be the 3 things, I guess, that seem to be running throughout all 4 of these movies is Jason Voorhees, a lot of people die, and the final person is going to be shown alive either in the hospital or in an ambulance.
Yeah, pretty much. And the dog is the smartest character.
Yes.
Oh gosh. So I can get into trivia. I got quite a bit for this movie because there's a lot of interesting things with this movie.
Okay.
So we mentioned the dance that Crispin Glover does. So that was a way that he would like legit dance in nightclubs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So on set, he was dancing to Back in Black by AC/DC. And when they did the movie, they dubbed over the song Love is a Lie by Lion.
Nice.
So at the time of this movie, it contained the most nudity and gore in the series. So
That
quote
sounds
at the time.
that seems about right.
Yeah, because it is a very like mean spirited, gory movie. I could say that.
Hmm.
Um, so this is the last movie in the series to immediately pick up where the last one left off. So I mentioned, um, the one day later thing and how
Okay.
those 3 are tied together. So this movie had a $1.8 million budget and it made 32.6 million.
Nice.
The character Axel that I mentioned, so the workout video that he watches is called Aerobicize, and it's from 1982, and it stars Darcy DeMoss, who went on to have a role in Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives.
Oh, nice. That's funny.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. So at the 1 hour, 2 minute mark, there's a scene where Rob talks to Trish about his sister, Sandra. He is referring to Sandra, who was one of the victims in Friday the 13th Part 2.
Okay, which one's that one?
She was the one that got impaled when she was sleeping with her boyfriend.
Oh,
Remember
okay.
they both got impaled with the spear?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering, like, I I remember catching that part, and it was so fast. Like, it was weird how they put that in there.
Oh, yeah. Like the first couple times I saw this movie, I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, I understood that he was essentially saying that Jason killed his sister, but I was just like, I have no reference on figuring out what movie it was from and, any of that.
Yeah, and like I didn't even think of that until last year. I went and saw Friday the 13th Part 2 and the final chapter together, like in the theater. And like in between or before the movies, like this guy came out and he like give like some backstory on it. And he said, I always saw 4 as a direct sequel to 2 because that's how they tie together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never really thought about that. Like I never like pieced that together.
So wait a minute, didn't you say that part 2 was on the 13th and
Yeah.
part 3 is on the 14th?
On the yep, and then part 4 is on the 15th.
Man,
Because
he
they're all
like
a day apart.
so essentially they're saying Rob's character was like really quick on things. Like when his sister died 2 days before, he came hunting for Jason
Yeah.
like right away.
Yeah.
So that's a little interesting.
Hmm.
But all right.
So the last one I got. So Joseph Zito, I had mentioned that he previously directed the movie The Prowler.
Hmm.
They when they reached out to him for this movie, they wanted him to both direct and write Friday the 13th Part 4. And he said, "But I'm not a writer." To which they said back, "Here's a contract paying you double to write and direct." And then he responded, "Yeah, I'm totally a writer." So Zeta used the extra salary that he got to hire Barry Cohen to somewhat secretly write the script.
Nice.
And then their process entailed Zito talking to Barney Cohen and Phil Scuderi in 1 hour phone calls to discuss the story in a script for the final chapter.
So
And
wait.
then the next day,
Go ahead.
Zito, would meet with Cohen in an apartment in New York, and they would like relay what the notes and ideas Scuderi had, which they would later turn to the script. And then, after they got that, then they would like have another discussion. So basically, like he kind of just took ideas from two other guys and figured out how to get them to work together.
So did those
So-
guys get credit?
I don't know if they got credit, but he did pay them with
Okay.
part of what his contract was.
Yeah, that at least is decent. But yeah, I wonder how anybody felt, if there was any credit. Or I mean, it seems like it's public knowledge, so that's at least, not terrible. But
Yeah.
interesting.
And kind of the last thing I got here. So, the slasher genre was like heavily criticized by Siskel and Ebert, and they would just like tear these movies apart and say how terrible they were and how they shouldn't be made and how they're sexist and all this other stuff, and just like all the brutal killings and things are things that people shouldn't watch. But Roger Ebert called this film an immoral and reprehensible piece of trash.
All right, tell us how you really feel.
Right? Yeah, if you go on YouTube, you can find like a lot of videos of him and Siskel, like just bashing these movies. But I guess with that, we can get into grades.
Well, hold on real quick. I think you
Okay.
know this.
Mhm.
You didn't do it in your trivia and everything, but you know who Crispin Glover is, right?
Yeah, like I know who the actor is.
You know what else he was in?
He was George McFly in Back to the Future.
Yeah, okay. I was just kind of surprised that didn't come up in your information. So, because I actually, when I saw it, I was just like, dude, I swear that's George McFly. And I actually didn't look it up until tonight. So, but it was tough to tell because he looked really similar and acted really similar, but there were enough things where I was kind of, maybe not. So I had to kind of confirm that, but I was a little bit surprised. I mean, I know actors are in a wide variety of things, but I mean, this was just 1 year apart from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of actors got their start in slasher movies. I mentioned Tom Hanks was in He Knows You're Alone. That was his first movie. Brad Pitt was in Cutting Class.
yeah.
And then like Johnny Depp was in Nightmare on Elm Street. Kevin Bacon was in the first Friday the 13th. There's like a huge list of big name actors and actresses that got their start in slasher movies.
Yeah, I've heard some of them. So, yeah, interesting. I mean, I know that Crispin Glover isn't the biggest name actor, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, and especially with how close they are to each other, 1984
Yeah.
and 1985. So,
Hmm. Okay, so from there we can get into our grades. I pulled what it is from IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. What's your guess for IMDb?
fortunately, I have not seen the grade on this. 7.1.
It is a 6.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Overshot
And
that one.
Rotten Tomatoes, there is a critic and an audience score. What do you think?
Audience, let's do 67%.
The audience is 51.
Man, dang, I'm really overshooting
Yeah.
this. So then critic, I would go 49%.
It is 20.
Oh my gosh. Holy crap.
I can't believe how low this one is. I feel like the IMDb one is closer if you're basing it on other movies. Um, so what would you give this? Seeing
Um,
that you've seen 1, 2, 3, now 4, you've seen Part 8 and Jason X.
oh man, I really should have probably been keeping track of what I ranked the other ones. Um, I'll probably go with a 4.5. Um, a really good job and everything. I don't know if any of these I'm going to give a 5 out of 5. But a 4.5, like I said, the development, the acting was good, special effects were great. This something that I want to mention to make sure that I don't forget it. I haven't said anything about it up until now. This one is the first one that made me feel like the video game.
Okay.
Just because I mean I know that there have been ones. I feel like maybe it was the only other one that was that closely related. Well, no, it happened somewhat in the second one, I believe. But just from the standpoint of Trisha's character going from one cabin to the other and back and everything, and like
Hmm.
hiding and escaping and
Jumping
jumping
through
through
windows.
yeah, exactly, jumping through windows. I was just like, wow, this makes me think of the game on how you would play it. He would find you and then you go run someplace and you would try to hide. And even though Jason was faster in this movie than he would be in the game, it I felt like the connection was finally made with I mean there have already been so many similarities and everything, but the play style along with the style of the movie paired the best so far with this one.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I would
and I
agree with that.
and I thought that was pretty cool just to see that and kind of make that connection because as I've said, I've come into this with so many expectations, I guess, or thoughts and predictions that were wrong just for because of my lack of knowledge of the series. So but yeah, I'll settle with a 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, I don't know if I'll ever get a 5 out of 5 with any of these, but what will be interesting is when we get through with all of them is for me to sit down and rank them from like best to worst. So,
Yeah, that's always fun to do. I've done it a few times, and every time I do it, I feel like my answer is gonna change.
mhm.
Um, and well, for me, this one's it's a 5 point. It's a 5 out of 5. Um, Sometimes I go back and forth whether this one's my favorite one, or part 2 or part 3 is my favorite.
Mhm.
But I would definitely say that 2, 3, and 4 are the best of the series.
Okay.
Um, there's some bad ones coming.
Brace
There
yourselves.
are there are some decent ones coming, some surprises. Um, but I'd say like the sweet spot for Friday the 13th are 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
So next time we will be reviewing Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. It is kind of a polarizing one in a series, but we'll get to that when we talk about it. Until then, be kind, rewind.